Alberta Primetime with Michael Higgins.
Welcome to Alberta Primetime. Ahead tonight, our Friday panel on concerns over the energy rebate application process. But first, big data landing in the industrial heartland.
Sturgeon County has had an industrial zone for 40 years. And so the site that they're on is a site that had initially been intended for 12 refineries. So there's a lot of social acceptance in the community for these kinds of developments.
The Premier on Alberta Primetime discussing Meta's plans for a massive data center north of Edmonton, a $13 billion project that will see the parent company of Facebook and Instagram partnering with the Greenlight Electricity Center, a recently announced $4.6 billion natural gas-fired power plant. And joining us now is the Mayor of Sturgeon County, Alana Nachu. Mayor Nachu, great to meet you. Thanks kindly for coming in.
Pleasure to meet you as well, Michael.
I have to say, two massive developments pushing up close to $20 billion. I have to think you are the envy of your municipal counterparts.
Well, for some of them, yes. Development in the heartland, and as the Premier mentioned, there's been major industrial development there for decades. But, you know, council after council over decades has been challenged to get those approvals. It's a very special part of Alberta and a special part of Sturgeon County just because of the resources there, the salt caverns for storage, the water. You know, it is good ag land as well, but industry landed there years ago with Nutrien, and now we've got Pembina, Wolf, NWR, Evonik, Can-Do Rail. So this is another piece of the puzzle, and it's certainly a good news story from an investment perspective, but it is a different sector than what we've seen before, which is why this announcement is, I think, being a bit more of a lightning rod than others.
Okay, so what did Sturgeon County then have to weigh when a project of this nature, but also of this scale, land on your desks?
Well, you know, we create the conditions to encourage site selectors to come and invest in the industrial heartland. And those conditions have been made through land use planning and approval processes that took place decades ago. And so we create the conditions, and then site selectors come in and find those conditions, and then they need to meet the regulatory requirements at the provincial level and at the federal level, and then eventually at the municipal level to get those applications passed. And so that is the process for those investments, and this one is no different.
Did you have to lobby for this?
No.
Did you have to provide incentives of any sort to get one of these companies to make a decision?
A lot of the investment in the heartland does get provincial, federal, and even some municipal incentives. We have those programs that have been worked out meticulously based on the delta between our competitors, landing businesses, and us landing, what needs to be brought in for us to be able to win. When it came to data centers, we did not need to offer any incentives because the value proposition of what we bring to the table cannot necessarily be recreated anywhere else. So we offered no incentives, and for any of the infrastructure investments as far as water line being brought in, road improvements needing to be made, those are all done at the expense of the developer.
I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on other North American jurisdictions implementing moratoriums, including in the States, but even more recently, Hamilton in Ontario put a pause on development here just in the last few weeks. Does their positioning resonate with you?
I think it's important for the right project to be in the right place. And because this is zoned heavy industrial, and this is a large industrial investment, I think it belongs where it's going. I think other jurisdictions are having issues when they potentially didn't have long-term multi-decade zoning and planning in place and infrastructure in place to be able to absorb the size of investment and the disruption that comes with multi-billion-dollar investments. And we've been seeing that and doing that in the heartland for decades, and we get better every time at being able to iterate and reduce the challenges that come with big projects. So I think we do have a world-class rare industrial cluster there. So we don't necessarily have the same issues that we see becoming problematic in other jurisdictions.
Sure, because if you look at a community like Coles, residents there they're raising concerns over water use, even noise.
Those are valid concerns.
And how it's handled assessment-wise where the environment is concerned. How you're set up, does that negate those concerns?
No. So the province even just brought in a designated industrial zone program that we worked with them over the last few years to be able to create certainty through the investment cycle and through the site selection cycle and through the approval process. But there are no corners being cut. What we did was just remove any redundancy between the municipality and the provincial requirements for different applications. But I do just want to, as I mentioned in our pre-discussion, looking back to hydrogen, there was a federal strategy and then there was a provincial strategy, and we struggled for almost 6 years to really see any slow uptick of that. It
fell off the radar.
Yes, but the feds came out not that long ago with a federal artificial intelligence strategy. The province came out with an artificial intelligence strategy December of 2024. So that became clear to us that that was a relevant sector. And in Sturgeon County, we believe in diversification across sectors to be able to stay resilient and sustainable. So we approved data centers as a permitted use in that industrial heartland in April of 2025. And then in June, AESO, the Alberta Electric Systems Operators, determined how much power was available on the grid, and then there was an open call. That open call resulted in a number of people getting smaller allocations, at which point some of these applicants worked to secure the amount of power they needed for their investment. So by August of 2025, AUC applications, Alberta Utilities Commission's applications, were filed for the Greenlight Electricity Centre. The Impact Assessment Agency of Canada application for the Greenlight Electricity Centre was also filed. And then that's also when the Government of Alberta introduced the 2% levy for data centres. November of 2025, the IACC, so the Federal Impact Decision, issued noting no further assessments required. June of 2026, the AUC approval granted Greenlight Electricity Centre their permits. County allowed a master site development permit just for them to start to talk about what they wanted to do on the site. We issued topsoil permits, and then in July was when the final investment decisions were made. And it's not up until that final investment decision is made and public that we know then it is a program that is going to go through. And at that time, then the application was filed for the development permit at the county level. And that's when we share it publicly, because then it becomes public information. Up till then, it's private industry on their own land, and we have to respect land rights and privacy rights. And so this is the same process.
It did not happen overnight.
It did not happen overnight, but it also didn't happen as long as I said, 5-10 years people know about Dow. But this is a new sector. But there were no shortcuts, and there were no incentives. This followed the exact same process federally, provincially, and municipally as the other $40 billion of investment that has landed in the Heartland.
We're going over time, but I do want to put one last question to you. This is a huge project. It's different than what you've had in the past. So being that it's different, what kind of door does it open? The fact that there is a hyperscaler coming in and it's somebody as big as Meta, I think will have a different landing in this jurisdiction because of our award-winning university, Alta ML, Amy. When you have that type of acumen and know-how in the region, we will see the diversification across the value chain for data centers and AI in a larger component here than I think what you'd see in other jurisdictions. More to come in the future. Mayor Nachi, appreciate you coming in today and telling us about this. Thank you kindly.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
From concern over the energy rebate application process to radio station closures in Calgary, coping with costs on the Stampede grounds, and snooping through green carts. Our Primetime This Week panel is in, and joining us this evening, Tom Keenan, professor in the School of Architecture, Planning and Landscape at the University of Calgary, the author of Techno Creep as well, and Darren Krause, editor and founder of Livewire Calgary. Good evening to you both. And let's begin with the Alberta government's newly launched energy rebate. It is a program providing many Albertans with $100, and to receive it requires providing information, including your social insurance number, tax information to prove you and your household make less than $225,000 annually. You also need to verify your identity by providing your driver's license number. And the province wants your banking information so it can direct deposit the funds into your account. For some Albertans, that's a bit too much of an intrusion.
It's just a grab for votes. It's a grab for information.
Seems like too much work for $100, actually. So I'm not going to bother.
It's like a breach of security, sort of. I just wouldn't be comfortable with it.
I don't think you want to be giving out all your information for $100.
Adding to the uncertainty, the recent electors list data breach. But the government says this application process is the only way to ensure the rebate is only going to those entitled to it.
Our Auditor General expects if we're going to spend $350 million that we know where it's going and we have fraud prevention in place.
I understand that there are some Albertans who have found the interaction to be a little bit frustrating. I just ask for their patience.
Now, about 10% of eligible Albertans have so far successfully applied for the rebate. Tom, you're a cybersecurity expert. We've talked to you about that in the past before. How concerned do you feel Albertans should be about the degree of personal information the government is gathering here?
Okay, the Alberta government already knows your social insurance number. If you file taxes, they've got that. They've got your driver's license number because they issued your driver's license. Where people are getting antsy is the banking information. I thought a little bit about that. Why are you sensitive about that? Well, remember the truckers convoy and the federal government, which of course has everything on you. They froze bank accounts. So maybe people are remembering that. There is an alternative way. You don't have to give your bank information, but that has its own problems. You have to take a photo of your driver's license, take a selfie and all that. A lot of people are saying, hey, for $100, I don't want to do that. I learned something interesting researching this. You can go online and find out what data banks the Alberta government has. So I researched, what would be in them. The bad news is there's 599 of them you have to go through.
Oh, my. Now, Darren, surprised some Albertans are reacting with skepticism, while others, some are not even bothering. It's $100.
You know what? I'm not surprised at all. The data grab is actually a pretty standard thing today, but not necessarily when the government is trying to give you money back. Quite often, these types of programs or these types of rebates are collected or are doled out after you do your federal income tax, and the province quite often has information related to those. So, but for me, it's more about the amount. I mean, Ralph Klein gave us $400 20 years ago. 20 years ago, when I first mentioned to my wife the amount without, or the rebate without knowing the amount, I said, hey, maybe this is a little bit of extra vacation money. And then when I found out the amount, I said, why would we even bother? So, yeah, I understand the skepticism. Many of the folks said exactly the same things that I'm feeling about this rebate.
All right. Next up, the ever-evolving media landscape.
Thank you to everyone who contributed to the station over the years, especially our listeners.
Sportsnet 960 and 660 News Radio Calgary among 6 Rogers Media-owned stations shuttered across the country this week, cutting 230 jobs.
Yeah, I'm going to miss it. It's the end of an era.
That's a disgrace. That's what I think. What's the alternative? There's nothing.
The company says it is the result of declining audience and revenue trends.
Rogers has built themselves quite the little empire. The market is becoming more and more concentrated, and the idea of regional outlets for TV, for radio, for newspapers is becoming more and more limited.
Former CTV Calgary meteorologist David Spence also spent a decade at 660 and calls it a loss for a market seeking out local news.
It's a loss of a credible news voice. in an age where social media seems to be becoming more dominant in the news landscape with information that cannot always be trusted.
The decision leaves the Flames, the Hitmen, the Wranglers without radio broadcasts. The Flames say they were blindsided and have no current plans moving forward. Darren, having migrated a number of years ago into the digital news landscape, how are you looking on these latest radio station closures?
Well, I think it's pretty crushing, especially from a sports standpoint. We can lament the loss of 660 News. However, there still is a fair amount of local news coverage. Sports reporting, however, is something that is virtually non-existent in Calgary. And until now, any sports coverage really only includes the Flames, Stampeders, and the Hitmen. So at a time when we need more local stories filling the airwaves or digital media space, as is my case, large conglomerates continue to cut it back, often replacing it with boilerplate, homogenous news content that no one watches or listens to. And to that end, they continue the demise of legacy media in a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's really frustrating.
Tom, you have a history that goes way back in radio. What do you make of the impact station closures like this have on the community? How concerning is it for you?
Well, I go back to Columbia University's radio station, WKCR, AM and FM New York, and we carried every Columbia sport, even baseball. And believe me, you need a good color commentator to make baseball interesting on the radio. There goes the Circle Line boat around Manhattan again, that type of thing. So to some extent, most people, I think, are trying to watch things on television. But there's an interesting tech angle here. If you buy a new car, take a look down. It may not have an AM radio. Tesla, a bunch of other BMW, Volvo, Volkswagen have removed AM receivers, at least from some of their vehicles. And funnily enough, there's proposed legislation in the U.S. to reverse that. It's called the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. And it's a bipartisan bill because they're saying, look, AM radio is free. It works if the internet is down. And in an emergency, it might be the best way to get out emergency information.
Indeed. Okay, gents, time for us to take a bit of a break. But when we come back, budgeting for a day of fun at the Stampede and why some Edmontonians are finding oops tags on their green cards. More from our Primetime This Week panel in a moment. Welcome back to the Calgary Stampede, winding down this weekend. 10 days of rides, rodeo action, and one-of-a-kind treats. Temptations that could test the budget.
We got the taco in a bag. This one's $17.
Mac and cheese. It was just over $20.
For the two, it's $50. $35 for the turkey leg.
This particular couple stuck to one item each to avoid breaking the bank, a trade-off that doesn't end at the Stampede gates, as they're not planning any elaborate trips this summer.
The way the economy is, and it's not worth it.
The decision reflects a broader trend. CIBC polling found 65% of Canadians are prioritizing saving over spending, and for the 39% planning to travel, they'll be sticking closer to home or within Canada. And for those making Stampede their destination, there are ways to stretch the dollar.
If you come on a free day, you cannot spend a dime. You know, you are allowed to bring in food, you are allowed to bring in your own water bottles. Plan ahead just for that one splurge, and then just know where the other options are for cheaper options.
Free admission on Family Day saw a crowd of nearly 164,000 passing through the gates. Darren, in covering this year's Stampede, Livewire Calgary's been tracking the numbers. What's the read on where 2026 attendance is heading?
Well, right now, I mean, there was a good bump yesterday, and it is sort of tracking back towards where last year was. But my soon-to-be 16-year-old son went with some friends, and they got in on TC Energy Community Day for free. But once he spent $30 for a Philly cheese dog and a drink, he was nearly tapped for cash. They didn't want to go on any rides because they didn't want to wait in a line for an hour. And I asked why they didn't stay later and watch some of the Coke stage bands. And they said there wasn't any good bands to watch. And this is from a kid who has been asking to go to the Stampede for a couple of weeks prior to it opening. So I think it was really captured in the lead up there. The cost of the Stampede grounds, the lineups that people are seeing on the Stampede grounds, you know, given that there are other summer options, I think that, well, ones that are better on the pocketbook, I think the Stampede is starting to feel the pinch in that respect.
Tom, what's to be made of, I think the one person said $35 turkey leg. What's that say about the state of the economy, maybe even where families are left in filling the summer with fun and festivities?
The Stampede is a place, you know, to overpay for food that you wouldn't get anywhere and probably wouldn't want anywhere. So you can get a barbecue rib cookie stuffed with rib meat, candied pickles, dill pickles on a stick dipped in hard candy, bacon fried Mars bars, and Area 51 taco burger that looks like a UFO. Now, years ago, I knew two teenagers. One was selling corn dogs down there. One was doing ice cream. They got bored, so they crossed over and they made deep fried ice cream. So I think they probably invented that. I'll give you my own strategy. I went down on the Seniors Day, what the heck, and I went in, saw the art show, and I got a $15 plus tip glass of wine. And that was my total Stampede spending this year.
All righty. Okay, gents, one more topic for us, and it's an Edmonton project that involves getting up close and personal with residents' trash. A special team of city employees spending early mornings searching green carts.
We do see some garbage and some recycling particularly, so we are taking an education approach first.
Which involves oops tags for things that don't belong, like food packaging.
When someone's opening like a granola bar or a fruit roll-up or any type of food, they associate the packaging with that food. One of our educators found a food scraps cart that was full of unopened Pringles cans.
As for the response of residents,
I feel good, so people will aware more, so they will get a sticker, so maybe they will start the same practice.
I really don't know for sure if they should go through it. They're a little odd, but people need to be educated about it.
A little odd. Now, if homeowners receive a second tag, there is a chance collectors may not pick it up. Tom, a commendable approach. What's to be made of this as a means of ensuring those green carts are properly used?
Well, Calgary did this a few years ago. It's a job nobody would really want, right? And we got a tag because there was a tuna fish can in there, and they didn't like that. So, you know, the reasoning, I understand composting only works if everything is pure, but they do have, you know, ways to sort it down there. Interestingly, down in Toronto, there was a proposal for a smart community called Quayside. One of the things that killed it was proposed by Google was automated analysis of your trash and recycling and it going into a database. So I immediately thought, are they keeping a database of people who don't do this right? And the answer is they must. If they're going to give you an extra penalty on your second offense, they must keep track of your first offense. Famous story, though. A guy in the States got really angry about his trash people. He saved up a whole month's worth of urine. He filled his bin with it. It dumped all over the garbage men because he was really mad. The city got so mad, they banned him from collection for 1 year.
Darren, you get last word. How do you think you'd respond if you found one of these folks rummaging through your green cart?
Well, I mean, as long as they're taking out the stuff that, you know, that shouldn't be in there, which we're pretty good about it, I guess I've got no real problems. You know, I question the education aspect of this, but hey, you know what? Interesting to see what the data says at the other end.
Yeah, we'll maybe have to follow it up. Okay, gents, we're out of time. Got to leave it there. Great to see you. Have a great weekend.
You too.
That is our program for tonight. Remember, you can always have a say. Email us anytime at comments@albertaprimetime.com. Have a great evening and a great weekend, everyone, from all of us at Alberta Primetime. Thank you for watching, and join us again next time.